Yes. You'll get to hear more from Ramon shortly as we are segueing into a panel that I'll be running, which is looking at building a resilient digital workforce, overcoming the challenge of foreign labour dependence in the supply chain. I will agree with Dr. Ramon while we're here, and I am the wife. So this is, you might want to film this moment. The wife is agreeing with the husband. But in terms of the fundamentals, I think one of the things that we do look at is digitalization makes things go faster. But if you get the fundamental wrongs, you're going to make bad things go faster. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Have a seat, Dr. Ramon. I won't introduce you as you obviously need no introduction, but I will ask my other panelists to come up. Imba Rajan, the famous Imba who Ramon referred to quite a few times, Chief Supply Chain Officer from Hanuman Beverages. Thank you very much. There's a happy gift microphone as you go up on the stage. And Jonas Anthony, if you'd like to join us as well. Jonas is the Executive Director of Corporate Management, Manufacturing and Quality, and Chairman of Manufacturing Human Resource Development at Panasonic Group Malaysia. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. I'll be taking up the panel. For those that weren't here earlier, my name is Stephanie Krishna and I work for IDC. IDC is a technology advisory firm and my area of research is in supply chain and manufacturing. Now, as we go into this, we're talking about the topic is building a resilient digital workforce and overcoming the challenges of foreign labour dependence. I think there's been a lot of this in the press recently. Actually, probably not even recently. I think we've been talking about this for a couple of years. And I know it's a hot topic in Singapore as well as Malaysia. What I'd like to do is perhaps we could start on this. And I'll start with you, Jonas. Perhaps we could look at how would you define the resilient digital workforce and how is the current circumstances, hindering the development of that?
Thank you for having me. Now I would define resilient digital workforce simply by saying that what is happening now is, as you all know, according to the World Economic Forum, it states that 70% of the world global economy is going to be digital economy in the next 10 years. So having said that, I believe in the coming 10 years, the demand for resilient digital workforce obviously is going to increase. So the skills that I'm talking about are both technical skills and also soft skills. So technical skills being like data analytics, AI, blockchain, AI of course, and cloud computing, and we have also other computer programming and coding, of course. So these are some of the skills that are going to be required in the coming years, and I think we can't escape that. Because there's going to be intense digitalization in the coming years. So having said that, the other skills I would think that would make a resilient digital workforce is the soft skills. I think it's important to have the cognitive skills, such as being able to collaborate, negotiate, critical thinking, design thinking, negotiating, and so these are some of I would call it the power skills. So these two skills sets, which is tech skills, soft skills, obviously will make you a smart person, and these skills are transferable skills, which means you actually can work in any industry by having these skills.
Great, thank you. What about you, Imba? What do you think? What makes a resilient digital workforce, and how is the current situation helping or hindering that?
Good. I think my colleague has covered almost all. There's no points for me to say. But I think I will just go on a little bit backward. What is resilient? This word we hear every day. Raymond spoke. A lot of people speak. Some people maybe are confused what is resilient. I think get the basics right, maybe, just to add on. What actually COVID has done is disruption, correct? In everywhere, physical form, information flow. So organizations were not prepared how to address this. And we all are connected in this. So what resilient here, how can technology help? Which actually my colleague has addressed that. You have the physical part and also the technology part, which he has said a lot. So resilient here is not only like what he said, people, process, everything is all coming. Can you sustain this for a while? How fast can you recover from what has happened during COVID? Your supply chain got disruption. I can tell you some cases I don't get my spare part and things goes on and they will say there's no workforce, borders are closed. So it made all organizations to rethink how can we be resilient, and that's exactly what my colleague has addressed. Is going to be a huge potential, and the word sustainable, Raymond spoke earlier. Can we be sustainable? This question is open-ended. I will not comment can be sustainable. It's going to be a very big challenge because it's so dynamic, so fluid, it's changing. It's always look out for what's happening in the very dynamic world with geopolitical, all these are connected. So just to add on, that's the point, Stephanie.
Okay. What about you, Ramon? You've mentioned your fundamental skills. That's obviously going to be part of a digital. What else?
Yeah, and I think as importantly, or perhaps more importantly, and we were talking about this over dinner last night, is the soft skills. And Jonas touched a bit on this, yeah? But that EQ angle, that willingness also to learn and adopt new things, that's what will make you resilient. So I think very good opening comments by Jonas, but focus on the soft skills. Hard skills are necessary, but I see a lot of kids out there, a lot of people out there with the hard skills. But it's the soft skills, the EQ, that we need to maybe pay attention to.
I agree. Now, this is not going to be a one-way panel. This is going to be a multi-way panel. I actually have prepared a poll question, which we're going to bring up at the moment, so I can get a response from you, the audience. Now, we're going to have that come up shortly. Now, you can go to menti.com. For those that haven't already and are unable to scan the QR code, what you can do is go to menti.com, and when we have the poll question coming, I've got an issue with the sharing. 1 second.
You see digitalization.
Here we go. All right, so if you can put in, you go to menti.com and put in the code 68113736. So if you can't scan the QR code, you just go to menti.com and you put in the code 68113736. And this asks us the question, and I'm actually going to get up and walk around because I find that a little bit more energetic sitting here and I can read better. So what is the biggest challenge companies face in reducing dependence on foreign labor in the supply chain? And we've got a couple of different options here. They're a little bit tiny, but I will read them out. We have cost implications, we have lack of skilled local workforce, resistance to change or issues with organizational culture, regulatory restrictions, lack of top management knowledge and or support, unclear about outcomes or benefits from the digital technology investment, or lack of a clear roadmap for transformation and having a coordinated and concerted effort by all stakeholders. So there's quite a few options there. It's anonymous, right? So we've got 34 people logged on. I expect 34 responses. Please let me know what you think is the biggest challenge that your company faces when it comes to dealing with challenges, reducing dependence on foreign labor in the supply chain. Now, while you're all answering that, please continue to answer that as we go through. Like I said, you can scan the QR code or you can go to menti.com and type 68113736. And after that, you can make a donation to... No, I'm just... But while we're doing that, I will turn to our panelists and just ask a question for yourselves. What are the key challenges faced by Malaysian companies across the supply chain due to their dependence on foreign labour? And Inbar, I'll start with you on this one.
Interesting question. Just to go back, Malaysia has been too long dependent on foreign worker. I mean, it's easy. I think most of you, unquote, quote, we have illegal, legal and all that. So we are so reluctant to change. And this has come now really, especially after post-COVID, the doors all are closed and we are suddenly caught. One main industry is construction. The 3R, dirty, the 3R everybody knows, difficult. What's the other one? Correct.
Dirty, difficult and
nobody
dangerous.
Wants to do it. Yeah. So we, Malaysian companies were so dependent on these foreign workers. I don't know how many million we have even now. and this became a halt during this time, correct? So what is the challenge here is many culture, barrier, productivity, they are unskilled, accommodation, wages, working hours, condition, huge kind of challenges. And then there is no clear guideline by the ministry to really address this, either properly or improperly. And this is one of the challenges faced. So they bring unskilled migrant workers, just put it somewhere and hope productivity will go. And this actually caused a lot of disruption in completion of projects. Even I will give an example. Some 3PLs, when I was long in Malaysia, they brought drivers from India to drive forklifts, OPT and all that. And they were not trained. Accident, knocking down pallets, because they see this as a dirty job. So there's a lot of things you can talk about the challenges in Malaysia. Low wage salary, and this is the biggest problem. Malaysia has been trapped in the low income group, simply reluctant of companies to move up in the value chain. All engage easy labor, easy way out, and there's no enforcement to do this. Talk a lot, I call it NATO. No action, talk only.
No action, talk only.
It's called NATO.
NATO.
So it's not the NATO of there currently. So I think there's a lot to add on, but these are some basic: low productivity, low wages, social safety. What safety are we talking? They will put all the signboard. Walk to any construction company and see what are they wearing. Look at the forklift drivers wearing slipper, no harness. A lot of things going on. So you can talk for hours here, but there's some of this, Stephanie.
Great. And just as we're coming up to that, I'm going to, the two top responses that are coming in so far, and please continue to answer if you haven't already, are cost implications. So obviously there is a cost consideration for this, and lack of a skilled local workforce. So you talked about a lot of these jobs being unskilled. I mean, obviously there is, and it's now come to number one, is this lack of a skilled, it's still that one, isn't it? The pink one is lack of skilled, is that right? Yes, so a lack of a skilled local workforce. So are we finding that that's a challenge? Jonas, do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, let me share my experience in Panasonic. Yeah, we had a big problem 5 years ago. I totally agree with Inba, what he said. Hiring foreign workers was difficult in the sense that now there are two factors here. One is actually the cost of hiring foreign workers. Yeah. Now, if you're going to comply to the regulations, by the government, the compliance cost is high. You have to pay levy, you have to pay EIS, you have to pay SOXO, and you may, if you want to pay EPF, it's not mandatory, but you can pay if you want. Now, the cost of bringing the worker from overseas is also high. The agents will have to pay, and then the local agents here. And many years ago in Malaysia, we were outsourcing this. And then we had a big problem as well. Good human rights practice, that's a big problem in Malaysia. What is happening is the workers, sometimes we can bring them easily, but do we really monitor their working conditions and living conditions? Now, what has happened over the years is investigative journalists have reported to the authorities in US and Europe, and then you find our products are held up in the ports, by customs border control. And many companies in Malaysia were affected by it. I'm not going to name the companies, but so there was bad publicity. And so now, having said that, to reduce foreign workers, we have to embark on digitalization, I would say. Yeah, there's no choice. And that's what I did as a head of digital transformation, actually embark in this journey. And we managed to reduce foreign workers in my company. And all we did was introduce IIoT, Industry Internet of Technology, robotics, automation. We did, of course, we couldn't do all. We had to identify by value stream mapping. We identified what are the processes that we can change from manual to automate. Okay, so pretty much you have to move from labor intensive to technology intensive. Otherwise, you can't sustain. That's for MNCs. But for SMEs, they still want foreign workers because they perceive it's cheap. They perceive investing in technology is high. So we have, MNCs, they're moving forward. And SMEs, they're quite reluctant. But what I want to say is we have to move, like what Inba said, the value chain. We have to move. Malaysia has no choice because our population is small and we can't depend forever on foreign workers.
Yeah. Now, another point that's being raised here, which is the last, we've got a little tail here, which is the lack of clear roadmap for transformation. In terms of having a roadmap from moving from a foreign worker to, either a digitalized workforce or a workforce that's dependent more on local capabilities. Do any of you gentlemen have any thoughts on that response? Have we seen it done in Singapore? Is it done well or not?
So I think there are three ways you can go about this, right? We have an industrial transformation roadmap that the Singapore government has released. You could rely on that. I wouldn't, but you could. The two that I would adopt is either if you don't have the capabilities in-house, go out there and work with consultants. Go out there and work with your peers, and depending on what you're doing, whether you are a procurement person or whether you're a regional person or whether you have global responsibility, have that action plan for that function that you perform. So you either do that by working with external parties or do that yourself. It could be wrong or it could be right. But if you put that thoughts down together in a plan, right, at least you've got something to critique. I mentioned earlier that I used to be responsible for $125 billion of freight spend. At the start of the year, based on what I forecasted for the industry, I would say, and I've been lucky this last couple of years, freight rates will go down. Okay, when I took on the role in 2021, so I did until early this year, all of us knew that freight rates were going down, right? So I had a plan. I was lucky that that plan was realized, but we had a plan. So you have to have that roadmap. Same thing for a technology roadmap within the supply chain function. Whether it was implementing a WMS or a transportation management system, or whether we wanted to build an API, and the people that we need. One of the things that I would do very quickly is get rid or jettison the employees that you think won't fit into the plan. Either transfer them somewhere else in the company or transfer them out of the company. And then get that roadmap in place and implement it. And then keep getting feedback. Right? Feedback not just from your peers, but also from your customers. Because you don't want to be your supply chain organization heading in one direction and that's not aligned to what the market needs. Right? So yeah, there are roadmaps out there. There is an industrial transformation roadmap that the Singapore government has. But I would recommend either 2 or 3. Develop something yourselves if you think you have that capability or if you don't have the budget for it. Or go out there and work with consultants or your peers. Yeah? And that's a plug for Kendrick and the Shippers Council.
All right. Now, according to you talked about jettisoning. Another option is to reskill. IDC's talent survey indicated that 81% of Asia-Pacific organizations said they are leveraging or planning to leverage task automation to overcome any talent issues. So that's talking to the digital aspect. But another road, is talking about, can we upskill or reskill? So what strategies can companies adopt to upskill and reskill their workforce to meet the demands of a digital supply chain environment? Because often, we are dealing with things like we have the lack of skill. I mean, again, our IDC talent survey said that 55% of Asia Pacific respondents said that they have a lack of supply chain capability due to both lack of resources, so the people aren't there to hire, or the people there don't have the skills. All right, so skills are obviously lacking, or the number of people are obviously lacking out in the industry. Foreign workers have been one way to deal with that, but realistically, we've got to build our own talent base with regards to this. How can we do this? Is there any practices that either Panasonic or Hanuma or your organisation, Ramon, have done to do that?
Speak in the Malaysian context. I think Malaysia, if you look at the general way of getting a tertiary education, and then you just want to go and do the job, but there's a change. Yeah? My report is correct, last year, I think 10,000 over students did not sit for SPM.
10,000 students did not
Did
sit
not sit
for
for SPM. And
SPM.
also we have fallout, dropouts. And where do these people go? They are easily can be trained, but somehow they are not takers. Malaysia has got a lot of TVET, we call it technical vocational education training. They also have HRD Corp, they have talent management. You look at all these available, but who is the taker? It takes sides, policymakers, or the private institution, the training. There's no takers. So everybody wants to think and get the normal degree paper and then sit in the office. But that era is, I think, coming to an end. Is today the vocational is what you look at Germany and many other countries, the Japanese and everybody bottom-up floor. So this is the problem. The government is having that, but a roadmap, unlike Singapore, very lucky, we don't have the willpower. They all are working in silos, institutions. Some private companies, yes, they have identified, retrain, reskill, do that. But that's not only the MNCs. How about the SMEs? A big chunk of our GDP. So there's no clear roadmap or policy. When will we transform year to year? And that's why I keep saying we are really caught. And we don't do that, we will become, really to be honest, non-competitive. And no workers are going to come here, and Malaysians don't want to work the 3R I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big challenge up there. And I think the Malaysian government, hopefully with the current government, they can really put all these jigsaw puzzles together and make it get through. Otherwise, honestly speaking, from my perspective, we'll have a huge mountain challenge here.
Okay. Just before we go to you, Ramon, if we can go to the next slide, Matthias, if you have any questions for the panelists, please, you can put them in the Menti slide. We've got a couple already, but I'll just let Ramon finish his point before we go to these questions.
So we can rely on the government, or we can hope that the government does something. But I think we have to rely a lot on ourselves, right? Ourselves as employees and also ourselves as organizations. So yes, I did talk about jettisoning individuals from the organization. My job 10 years ago was from fly to, that movie Up in the Air? That's what I used to do. I used to fly from country to country, fire someone in the morning and then fly out the same day. It's quite a fun job. I'm just joking. But we also have to be very realistic here. Yeah? I've always got three types of employees, and I think I fall into one of those three types of employee categories. There's some people who can evolve and change and develop with an organization. Those of you who work with American MNCs or work in American MNCs, they change their strategy every other year. You get a new CEO, they will have a centralization concept, then they will go to a decentralization concept, then they will say they want to do insourcing, outsourcing, nearshoring, reshoring. So some of us can chop and change and evolve with the organization, learn new skills, take on new attitudes. Those sort of employees, fantastic. Yeah, if you fit in that category, good for you. Okay. Then I also have a second group of employees, and I work with a lot of these guys. People who've been with the company for like 10 years, 20 years. Very good family people. They love their jobs, they love their company, but they don't really want to change anymore. They're maybe in their late 40s, early 50s. Good, hardworking people, but they just want to do their job. They don't want to actually learn new skills unless they really have to. But they're the people, especially in logistics and supply chain. They're the people that keeps the company running. Okay, the company that I'm involved in, we ship 60% of our orders in the last 3 weeks of the quarter. Okay, so that means in the last 3 weeks of the quarter, we get 60% of our orders, and that's like 9,000 deliveries a day. So the staff who work in the order management function, who work in the warehouse, for the first part of the quarter, the first 2 months of the quarter, they don't have that much to do. Then all of a sudden, there's a strong hockey stick. You need a very special person who can work 18, 20 hours a day getting those orders out there. You can talk about digitalization, automation, but you can have all the tools that you need. When you have that many orders coming in, you have to pick, pack, and ship it, right? You have to do your invoice, your packing list. You have to make sure it's not a dual-use item, so on and so forth. So that's the second category of people. First one, people who can chop and change, very dynamic, learns a lot. Second one, doesn't want to learn that much, but they're just hard workers. And if you don't have people who fit in that first and second category, then they come into the jettison category. Yeah, not aligned to your organization. You need to change them. Yeah, so hopefully we fit in that first category and we can find more of those sort of people. And I guess by some of us coming here today, we are trying to demonstrate that at least. So hopefully we can find more of those.
Okay. All right, with that in mind, and maybe just shifting gears and taking into account the question that we have up here, Jonas, maybe you can talk to us about, are there any regulatory or policy barriers that hinder the adoption of a digital workforce in this industry, and how can they be overcome? And then, just we'll kind of segue that later into the question that's up on the screen, which talks about sustainability and digitalization and how government initiatives can help support this. So perhaps if you could start, talking about the I guess any barriers or any policies that are helping or hindering this.
Okay. I don't think there's any regulatory or rules or regulations that are hindering. In fact, the government is encouraging companies to move up the value chain. Now, I've been meeting with the authorities, officials from MITI, from MIDA, from MDEC. Now, they all are very supportive. They're very supportive. They want companies to move up the value chain. Yes. So there's no restrictions. There's no rules. And knowing the situation now, we need more skilled workers, tech skilled workers, and the government is working very hard. But unfortunately, what I would think is going to happen is the government and industry, they're working very closely. But on the other hand, there has to be an industry or digital education policy in Malaysia. There has to be a revamp in our education system. Now, it has to start from the primary to secondary and tertiary. So what I mean actually is we have to start teaching our kids about programming, coding, robotics, cloud computing, and so forth. STEM education is important. So that's where the focus has to be. And I believe also in the universities, what has to happen is there has to be a revamp in the degree courses that we offer. There has to be hybrid programs. So what I mean by hybrid programs is most of the courses will have to carry a digital content. So I'm talking about mechatronics, mechanical and electronics, bioengineering, food engineering, and so forth. So Malaysia lacks that at the moment. So there has to be a concerted effort between the academia, the government, and industry to work together to come up with this policy. I believe Singapore has done it. And we have to do it because we are losing time actually, because in the next 5 to 10 years, things are really going to change. And what frightens me is, do we have the workers to support the digitalization that's going to take place? If we can't, then we need to import foreign workers who has got tech skills. Okay, if we import foreign workers with tech skills, can we compensate them? Because countries like Australia, Singapore, US, and UK, they're paying them very high.
Yeah, and we're importing them as well.
Yeah, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a brain drain. So that's something that we have to really address in Malaysia. Of course, government and industry, they are doing their part, but in the schools, we have to make a big change.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with that. I mean, I was talking to the dean of the engineering faculty at my alma mater in Australia, and he was saying that STEM enrolments by Australian citizens is actually down for university courses in a number of university courses, not just in University of Wollongong, but in a number of universities in Australia. And what that results in is Australia or other countries are actually going to start demanding that sort of STEM capability, and they'll start importing Malaysians who are qualifying, which is going to then result in, again, fewer talent availability in this market, lower talent availability in this market. It has a knock-on effect. We're all connected, right? So you're looking at migration and things like that. So it's not just about migration in; it's migration out that's going to be a concern there. So there's a few different factors that are working there. Just in the interest of time, maybe we can move on to the next question. We've got 7 questions actually. We need to consider elements that affect the issues of lack of manpower after investing technologies. So I'm not sure if we could expand on that a little bit. So after investing in the technologies, I'm thinking we're going to have a shortage of digital skills. So we certainly need to consider that. And I think that's where we've spent a lot of the time talking today, is saying that we do need digital skill development in order to make sure that when we do invest in the technologies, we have the manpower to address that. So we'll move on to the next question after that. Do you see Malaysia moving to a higher wage, higher knowledge economy and thereby reducing needs for foreign labour? Anybody want to take that?
Jonas, you said something a few minutes ago I didn't quite agree with. Or not didn't quite agree with. You said Singapore has this tripartite relationship between government, enterprise and academia about developing skills. But do you know how we address the talent shortage? We import foreigners. Yeah. So if you go to A-STAR, which is our research, if you go to NTU, a lot of the postgrad and the postdoctoral fellows or students are actually foreigners. And they come from countries like Romania, Italy. My next door neighbor, literally, I opened my front door, my next door neighbor, there was these 3 girls. I thought they were Russians. It was pre-COVID. They still live there. Actually, they're Romanians. They're from Romania, and all 3 of them they have come to Singapore, done their PhD in National University of Singapore and Nanyang Technological University, and then computer science, and they are
AI, data.
yeah. AI data people, That's actually how we've done it. Singaporeans didn't want to learn the hard skills. That's why we have NUS High School, right? But not enough of us. Not enough of us going into the science and technology field. So we import foreign talent.
Yeah. So
to answer this question, my perspective, you have to move ahead, right? Malaysia is going to have to move ahead. If you look at ASEAN as an example, we've got Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand as the more developed ASEAN members. And then we've got that middle pack, maybe Brunei and Indonesia. And then you've got CLMV, right? Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. Those guys in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam are pushing up. So if Malaysia doesn't want to get left behind, just like Singapore as well, we need to develop more of these skills so that we stay ahead. Right? So that's my perspective.
Yeah, agreed. Now, just in the interest of time, we will look to wrapping up, but maybe if I could just get a summary comment from each of you in terms of the position of labour and where we should take it forward. If there was 1 or 2 steps that you would say for organisations to take forward in terms of either addressing digital skills or in reducing reliance on foreign labour, what would you say they would be? Jonas, you want to start? Yeah.
Okay. I think this topic about digital transformation, it's for many CEOs that I've come across. I've been for many conferences like this, spoken to many of them. They are very skeptical. It's like a paradox. They are saying like, it sounds great, it sounds fantastic, it sounds real, it sounds futuristic, but well, I can't see the benefit. I don't think it will work. It's just talk, it's just hype. So now these are the feedback that I get, but I think that's wrong. Because I know for sure that digital transformation is going to be important in the coming years. And so which simply means CEOs, I would say about 50% of them, they lack knowledge. Yeah, they lack awareness. So it's important for them to attend a conference like this and all the conferences. I've been for quite a number of talks in companies, and I spoke about digital transformation. And I was glad to see, because they have things like Digital Transformation Month to create awareness in their respective organizations. So just another factor, many organizations resist change. Yeah, and I think that's human nature, but we have to identify the change resistance and we need to address it. And one way of doing it, because I had the same problem in my company, I took all my top guys for a factory tour, a company where they're full into digitalization, another Panasonic company, and they were shocked. They said, "Oh, we can do things better, more efficient, more productive, faster." So that is the awareness that you have to create. Then brought them back in, and I spoke to the union. Can we go ahead? And the union guy said, "Oh, you're going to kick us out. We're going to lose our jobs." I said, "No, we are not going to. You're not going to lose our jobs. We are going to automate. We're going to do robotics. We're going to do machine inspection and AGVs and whatnot. But we will use the excess manpower in the other business area." So we have the flexibility to do that. So I think the awareness is important.
So I think awareness and then job redesign, I think, is the other takeaway I would have there. Inbar, did you have any? Just quickly.
I agreed 110% with you.
Yeah.
So the resistance to change, I think that's the one. And many companies even have this topic, change management.
Change
Some
management,
of this,
yeah.
what is change management? What you see tomorrow, you don't see. Layman term. So I think it must come from the top. If the top is not going to change, and then the other one Raymond mentioned is continuity of the top management. This year, another CEO comes, this is my way, otherwise highway. So there is no continuity. It cannot take overnight to do all this, correct? It's a plan that for 5 years. So that's another challenge as well.
Okay. Ramon, actions for 1 or 2 actions to take forward.
So I agree. So the first one, get the buy-in, yeah, whether it's from the CEO, etc., etc. Inba and Jonas have said that quite well. The other thing is be prepared to fail, right? I think if you look at the stats, 70% of digitalization or some crazy number of digitalization efforts failed. Why? Because they failed to plan adequately. But also be prepared to fail. We don't have that failure mindset or culture here. We think that we fail, we'll get fired. Very often that's the case. But yeah, be prepared to fail. Not everything's going to succeed.
It's start small, fail small, and then move on, right? That's a key thing.
Just
Yeah.
to add to Raymond,
Yeah.
I think he's right. Yeah, failure rate is quite high, but based on research, why the failure is high is simply because the organization lacks the culture of continuous improvement and innovation. Don't simply dive into digitalization when you do not have a strong culture to improve continuously, strong culture to make things better. And most important is you must have the tech workers to support that change. Yeah, so that's what I did. I actually sent my engineers to University Malaya, to the Center of Industry 4.0, got them all upskill and reskill before I actually embark on this journey. So that is important. On the management part, we have to do our homework. We have to do our part. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, everyone. Just to summarize, I think there is an opportunity for this in Malaysia. IDC research has shown that actually digitalization projects do actually work or have higher chances of success when there's greater alignment with management and the overall strategy of the organization, and the potential for profit and revenue performance is significant. There's also been a lot of competition in Malaysia as organizations are seeking to diversify their supply chains, and they are moving to Malaysia, Indonesia and Vietnam are strong beneficiaries of China Plus One diversification, where organizations are moving their factories away from China or diversifying them away, so not zero China, but China Plus One. And Malaysia is seeing a lot of competition from that because the Chinese government has had a lot of focus on automation and they're bringing that automation down. So you're seeing new market entrants that are going to be coming in with digitalization. And also the new companies that come, they're digitalizing. And with this, they're requiring the skills and they're going to snap up the workers, pay the salaries. And if we don't move forward with that, then we're going to be left behind. Because if you were going to start a company today, you would not do it the same way you did it 20 years ago, right? And this is a mindset that we need to adopt with regards to change management. So the last lesson I would take away from here is the education system. We all need to become tiger mums and tiger dads. Yeah, we all need to get on our kids' backs to go into STEM. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, we do need to encourage that. It's not a skill to be afraid of. Math is fun, all right? Math is fun, and there is a lot of potential for people who are willing to invest in themselves and invest in their children's future. With that, I would like to not stand in between you and lunch. Lunch is going to be served outside. Please visit the sponsors. They're joining us. And we are coming back at, and I'm just checking my timetable, at 1... Is it 1:45 or 1:15? I've got two times here. 1:15. So 1:15, please see you back here. And we will be going into navigating the digital frontier, intelligent integration and automation with Boomi. And go and speak to Boomi. They've got great people there that can have a great conversation about integration and how it can improve your business. So thank you very much.
Only